Welcome to Redefining Medicine, an intimate and personalized program that illustrates a different side of the practice of medicine. Our in-depth conversations will focus on the physicians and practitioners who are redefining medicine through their integrative, functional, and holistic approach to health and well-being.
Welcome to our weekly Redefining Medicine podcast. I am pleased to welcome back Dr. Mark Rosenberg, founder and director of Advanced Medical Therapeutics, based in Boca Raton, Florida, and director of A4M's Integrative Cancer Fellowship. Welcome, Dr. Rosenberg.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Dr. Rosenberg, in your last podcast with A4M, you mentioned that the hardest part of your work is the pushback you receive from conventional doctors. How has that changed?
Well, that's a very good question. I think the pushback will always be there from the conventional side. So, and I don't remember what I said last time, not to compare myself with Galileo or Copernicus, but those guys had trouble. So anybody who steps outside the box, anybody who doesn't follow the leader, then they are ostracized. And I don't think that certainly that's the way it was in history, that's the way it is currently, and that's the way I see the future. So it will always be a battle. Having said that, because I've been doing this work for about 17 years and I've had interesting success, I'm starting to actually get referrals from conventional oncologists, including a local neuro-oncologist for glioblastoma, which is the most aggressive brain tumor with a median survival with the best of care of about 14 months. I am working with someone who is very high level with Memorial Sloan Kettering. And I did start a pharmaceutical company, and our team merged with a group from Harvard. So I think what's happening is I'm starting to get more recognized in the academic realm and actually getting referrals. So there is starting to be less pushback. Having said that, it tends to be the more local oncologists that are not affiliated with academic programs that's where the real pushback is, because what the people that are leading the academic programs, these are the guys that are out there, the guys and gals that are out there trying to push the envelope and come up with more novel, better treatments. Whereas the folks in the non-academic programs, their goal is to follow the guidelines, what we call NCCN or National Comprehensive Network Guidelines. That's what you want to do. You don't want to ever go outside that box, whether it's efficacious or not. You feel safe operating in that box because you are following the rules or the guidelines. So again, I think that I don't anticipate that changing with the bulk of the local healthcare practitioners that are following the guidelines. But I am getting more, not just respected, but I am having more of the academicians work with me.
What new research and/or clinical updates are you most looking forward to when you look ahead at the current trials and studies that are being conducted?
Well, certainly some from an anti-aging standpoint, there are further trials going on, not only with a supplement, but with drug cocktails on inhibiting senescent cells, or I should say targeting or killing senescent cells. So, many of us are aware that the problem with aging is that once the cells have reached their what's called Hayflick limit and they're no longer dividing, most of these cells don't die. Rather, they sit there and they fester. And we call those senescent cells because they are senescent and no longer dividing, but they release inflammatory cytokines that promote further aging and degradation and basically push you closer to death. So there's a lot of research looking at how to target or actually eliminate those senescent cells. And I think that's a very, very exciting field. We simply can't look only at, say, we want to make the telomeres longer. even though we understand that longer telomeres are there when you're young, and as you age, the telomeres shorten. Because there's also the worry that lengthening telomeres could help cancer cells as well. As a matter of fact, we do know that most cancer cells will express telomerase to make their telomeres longer. So I think one of the most exciting fields is hitting on these senescent cells. Along with that, there is a lot of research going on into prolonged fasting, certainly touting Walter Longo's work on prolonged fasting. And, it's hard to argue with the data that we have in all animals that I challenge the individual to find a modality that's more effective at slowing the aging process and extending lifespan than dietary changes such as calorie restriction, prolonged fasting. So I think we're going to have a lot more data on that. And finally, I want to just address an exciting area that will evolve with cancer, and that's looking at the immune system. So we now have drugs that turn on the adaptive immune system, although they ignore the innate immune system. But there's going to be a lot more work in that field, because we are starting to see, after years and years of just using maximum tolerated dose chemotherapy, that simply non-specifically killing rapidly dividing cells by itself is not the answer. And so there's going to be a lot more work going on in modulating and enhancing immunotherapy to not only try to manage cancer, but actually try to attempt a cure. Because I think right now, for the most part, without employing an immune response to handle cancer, the best we can do is try to buy a little more time. So I think the future really is in using multiple techniques for treating cancer, multiple modalities, but incorporating immunotherapy that is certainly going to evolve. And to the last point to that is our current immunotherapy for cancer is only targeting the adaptive immune side. And I'm sure everybody out there listening understands that. For simplicity, we divide the immune system into the innate immune system, where the cells are constantly surveilling the body and attacking anything abnormal. But then when it does attack abnormal cells, those cells release antigens as they die, and they will then trigger the adaptive immune response, the T cells and the B cells. And it's so important to get the innate immune system involved, because it not only stimulates the adaptive immune system, but it directs and modulates that adaptive response. So I see the future is, we're going to come up with ways, supplements and drugs to modulate and turn on the innate immune system, like beta glucans, which are found in mushrooms. And beta glucans are wonderful at stimulating the innate immune system. So that, I think, is the big future, is again, modulating immunotherapy and evolving, improving immunotherapy.
Dr. Rosenberg, in 1971, President Nixon declared a war on cancer with the National Cancer Act.
Sure.
That was 50 years ago. From your perspective, what have we accomplished in that half a century in the war on cancer? And in your opinion, where have we failed along the way?
I think many of us are disappointed. Have we made strides? Have we made any improvements in treating many cancers? And the answer is yes. But I certainly think that we could have gone down a different road. I have a colleague and a friend who's an MD, PhD, who had spent, I believe, about 15 years at the National Cancer Institute studying gene mutations in cancer. And he eventually quit. And what he had told me is, he said, this is kind of a joke, studying gene mutations for cancer. So the gene mutations that occur with cancer seem to be not the cause of cancer, but a response or adaptation of the cancer in response to our treatment trying to kill the cancer. And what my colleague found is that there are really indefinite number of gene mutations that can occur in response to the treatment. And so what he found was that going after the next gene mutation, next gene mutation, next gene mutation, for the most part, did not extend survival very long. Now, having said that, I do want individuals out there to know that there are some driver mutations, meaning there are some mutations in cancer that are really strong drivers for maintaining that cancer. And if you block that mutation, you can get several years of extended life, which is significant. Unfortunately, most of the mutations are not strong driver mutations that if blocked will extend life very much. So it has been a little disappointing to me that is where a lot of the research has gone over all these years, developing another drug to block a single mutation that may get another few months of life. Now, on the other hand, I am happy that we are going down the immunotherapy avenue. And I think that's where we have greater hope to combat cancer better and maybe start winning the war on cancer. Now, again, where we are right now with immunotherapy is the truth is the immunotherapy drugs, perhaps other than the malignant melanoma, it's not a home run. And I'd say it's barely a base hit. So they are not really working that well outside of the treatment of melanoma. But just the fact that we are looking in that direction and learning more about the immune system and cancer, I do have hopes that over the next several years, the tide will turn and we will start winning the war or doing better, winning some battles in cancer. People ask me, do I ever think we'll be able to cure cancer completely, eradicate it? And my opinion, which may not be a popular one, is absolutely not. And the way I look at it as the intelligence of the human organism is far above the ability of the brightest individual on this planet. The intelligence of the organism is mind-boggling what it can do. We don't know how to create a new organism other than through the traditional way of mating the sperm and the egg or cloning, but we don't know how to artificially make a true human being because it's way too complicated. And what I believe is that cancer is the intelligence of the human organism gone rogue. In other words, the intelligence of the human organism is what allows us to stay healthy. And again, we don't understand all that. It is so complex that with our greatest computers, we don't understand all the checkpoints involved in keeping the organism healthy. Having said that, when cells go rogue, and I don't want to get into the true cause of cancer, because that's up for debate. But the point is, when these cells now are using the same intelligence to keep the cancer cells alive, we don't know how to beat that either. And I think that the day that we will be able to consistently cure all cancers will be the same day we'll be able to consistently manufacture human beings.
Dr. Rosenberg, you were talking about the body's innate intelligence and our immune system's incredible ability to fight disease. Do you ever foresee a time where we might have a vaccine for cancer?
So the answer is I don't foresee a pan vaccine. In other words, we know there are several viral triggers for cancer. We're learning more and more about, the gut microbiome and bacterial and fungal triggers for cancer. And so I think the future is we will have specific vaccines targeting specific, whether it be viral or fungal or bacterial causes of cancer. But do I see a pan vaccine coming out in the future? I really don't. Many of us talk about cancer being many different diseases, but likely there is a precursor to those many different diseases. And, some argue that this is a mitochondrial abnormality, metabolic abnormality. Maybe it's a consortium of metabolic, mitochondrial, and toxic insults coming together. But I honestly do not believe that there will be a pan vaccine to prevent all cancer.
We know that early detection is key to fighting and surviving cancer. What should we be doing better to detect cancer early on?
So there's no question about it. It's much easier to cure an early stage cancer than a late stage cancer. And early detection is very key. Right now, we have not yet made great strides in improving early detection. The mammograms that have been done for so many years, retrospectively, we look back and we really didn't save very many lives with mammography. Now, the hope is now that we're using 3D mammography, the resolution is better, we're going to do a better job. This is where I do see the future in better screening. There are several companies working on a pan-cancer blood test, meaning a blood test that can detect cancer before perhaps there are any symptoms, and possibly even before there are any abnormalities to be seen on an imaging study. And we understand that it takes about 1 million cancer cells to form a 1 millimeter lesion on a scan. So keep in mind, you could have 100,000 cells of cancer sitting somewhere and nobody knows about it and nobody will see anything. So there are companies, and I won't mention any names, but there are a couple of companies, and one company seems to be leading the field on a pan-cancer screening blood test. And I think that will be very exciting. And it's really looking at what's called CpG methylation patterns. So these are nucleotides on the DNA. Using an AI platform, they discovered specific methylation patterns that let us know, hey, there's cancer there. And so I suspect that's only several years out from getting some form of approval by the FDA. And one of the things that's going to hold that approval up for just being used as a broad screening is we're going to need to know what to do with that. So, for example, let's say that this blood test shows you have cancer, and we image the entire body, and we don't see on an imaging study cancer anywhere. Now, let's say that this blood test is better than just or I should say has improved specificity. So we can say, not only do you have cancer, but the cancer's in your lung. And we do a CT of the lung and we don't see anything. Where do we go next from here? So these tests are going to force us, again, necessity is the mother of invention. So we're going to have to know what to do with this. But I am also optimistic about our ability to be able to screen for cancer better. So that is coming along.
Can we talk about stem cells? I understand that one of the reasons that cancers come back after remission is because chemotherapy doesn't kill the cancer stem cells. And when the cancer comes back, it is often worse than the initial cancer. Can you speak to that?
Sure. So we have a lot of data regarding cancer stem cells, and you're absolutely right. There is a lot of data showing that when radiation therapy and chemotherapy is employed, even when it's shrinking the bulk of the tumor, we're often seeing enrichment of the cancer stem cell population. So cancer stem cells, we define them as cells in the cancer that are unique in the sense that they're hardy, They don't seem to respond to any of the treatments that we know of, and they are responsible for uncontrolled self-renewal. Those are the cancer stem cells. And so we are, I say we, multiple companies are looking at drugs to target cancer stem cells. I formed a pharmaceutical company, and we merged with a group from Harvard, and we have a drug that, at least in all the animal studies, as well as in vitro, seems to preferentially target the cancer stem cells as opposed to the non-stem cells. And so we hope by the end of 2021 to initiate our first human phase 1 trial, hopefully a basket trial. In other words, we take patients with all different solid tumors. And so I am cautiously optimistic about our ability to kill cancer stem cells.
CRISPR, the gene editing technology, was invented in the late 1980s and has been developing ever since. Do you hold out hope for CRISPR in the prevention of cancer?
The CRISPR technique is really getting exciting, and I think it's I don't know if it's there. It may be there where a doctor can even get his own little CRISPR machine and do it locally. So it is. I think it's going to play a greater role in the future in not only preventing but treating disease. So I think that's exciting. Again, I want to temper the enthusiasm a little bit, just keeping in mind that gene drivers, there's no question about it. Abnormal genes or gene mutations are the cause of a lot of disease, but it's also a response to a lot of disease. So although I don't want people to think CRISPR is going to be the holy grail for all disease, I think it's going to be helpful.
That was a fascinating discussion, Dr. Rosenberg. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Lindsay.